episode 2 of the Sports Advocates podcast. I am Manistee news advocate and Benzie County Record Patriot sports reporter Mitch Vosburg. Flanked with me, correctly 90 degrees away from me, from sports editor McLain Moberg. McLain, as we're recording this, it's Wednesday. It's snowing a little bit, but how are we doing?
Oh man, it's another Wednesday afternoon here in Manistee County. I would expect nothing less but snow to be falling on a random day, since we haven't had too much of it. But honestly, you never really know with this town.
Yeah, well, we were talking before we started recording how, because we're both originally from downstate, and somehow they're getting it worse than us, and we're just, just knocking back and laughing a little bit.
Laughing a little bit, yeah,
It's pretty nice. But, yeah, for those of you who stuck around and listened to the first episode, thank you for the support. For those of you moseying over for the first episode, thank you for finding us on probably some random chance, but we appreciate everything we got. We're going to talk, obviously, our reactions to the NFL divisional round and what a weekend that was. Spoiler alert, I was so wrong on the Giants. I'm still upset about that. I'm kind of done with the betting aspect for a little while now. We're also going to have a pretty fun guest, I would say. Can I introduce her?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Hannah Harrington, the Bear Lake girls varsity basketball coach, will be joining us here in a little bit. It's going to be a fun interview. To me, another sort of pioneer of the sport in the area. She's in similar age to us. Obviously, Todd was more of an elder statesman here, so maybe a different perspective on some things while they coach the same sport as well. So it'll really be interesting to see, her takes on certain aspects.
Absolutely. It's always fun to get someone a little closer to our age, which I hate to go on a small rant, but I'm kind of noticing in this town, it's not a bad thing, but I'm kind of noticing it's kind of a bit of a struggle.
It's the age capacity here, if that's something we want to say. Obviously, this is a vacation town. It's a beach town. I think it's naturally a little older. There's some grandparents in the area. A lot of passionate grandparents, too, I might add. They're always calling me, which I do actually appreciate. Most of the grandparents are calling me, passing along good reviews to us, Mitch, and that's always nice to hear. And so... and at games too, it's nice to see. I was recently at a Bear Lake girls game. Had a grandfather come up to me afterwards and say, how proud he was of his grandchildren, and that's really why we do this. And so, the town being a little bit older, definitely not a bad thing, but always nice to get somebody younger in the chair as well.
Absolutely, we absolutely love this audience. That's just it's a cool, unique audience that's just for us. Really, that's what it boils down to. But. Let's quit lollygagging here. Let's get to a little chit-chat with Hannah. All right, joining us now in our wonderful podcast room that's also serves as our conference room. Fun fact of the day for you. Former player in this county about a decade ago. Probably best way to sum up would probably just be a stud. But now she's grabbed the coaching reins here for her second season. Ladies and gentlemen, Bear Lake High School girls varsity basketball coach Hannah Harrington. Hannah, thank you for joining us. How are we doing on this wonderful Wednesday?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Right on. McLain, starts off from there.
Yeah, man. I want to know, for starters, Hannah, how many years you've been doing this, coaching girls basketball?
Coaching girls basketball, as the head coach, it's been 2 years, but then off and on as assistant coach, it's probably been about 5 or 6 to those. So about 7 or 8 years for that. And then middle school, I did 2 years as well.
Okay. Just in terms of what interests you in coaching, what kind of draws you to it? You're obviously a basketball player yourself, but you didn't exactly have a linear path. No. From what we've known and talked about, and Mitch has written about here. So, my question is just sort of what draws you to that profession and what keeps you going in it?
I think the biggest thing for me is when I was an athlete, I just wanted to be that adult that I needed when I was an athlete and to be that coach and to really just help the next generation, because I think so often people have an idea of this next generation is a mess or whatnot. And so I want to be able to help them and help guide them through different life lessons and things like that. And that's what really made me want to coach. But now that it's basketball, it's a plus to it because I love the game and I always have. And it taught me so many lessons and it saved me in many ways. So I want to be able to give that back.
We've talked about it so often, your philosophies. I think they're very unique to the area and with a lot of coaches, there is more in-depth details that goes into that for you and so many different facets of it. I just want to give you a few minutes to kind of talk about those philosophies and why you think it's so important for the kids to be comfortable in their own skin, for them to be confident, for them not to have to rely on wins and losses for whether they're happy or whether they're sad. Because, of course, people have read about it on the website, but, getting to hear it from you first, I think, is a little bit of a different take.
I think sports in general can teach you a lot. I mean, whether you're watching it or what you guys do, you write about it, you can learn a lot from it, or playing it, coaching it. And sometimes when you just focus on those wins and losses, you take away so much of the potential of learning from it, I believe. And, as an athlete, I had a lot of pressure on me we have to win. We're ranked 7th in the state, we need to keep winning. And when you finally lost, it kind of set you back. And you what I did personally was I put my worth in how I would perform or how the outcome of the game would be, and then I'd belittle myself. And I don't want this generation to feel that way. Obviously Bear Lake Girls hasn't had a winning season for a long time, so they just kind of look at it as, why do we try then? And I never want them to think that, because you can get just as much out of sports losing as you would winning. So I think for myself, teaching these girls these life lessons about, how do you come back from setbacks? How do you, when things don't go your way, how do you respond to that? And those are just like key things that I really want to focus in on, because as an athlete, it's all about how I performed. And as a coach, I want these players to understand they're not just players, they're people. And that comes first and foremost.
Now last year, you guys had a rough go of it, obviously. This year, I would say things have turned around, and not only in the win column, but within the locker room and watching guys and talking to you guys, this group feels a little more collected than maybe it was last year, even with a Kalissa, who was fantastic in the locker room, as we've discussed too. But for some odd reason, post her graduation and your 5 or 6 girls that are coming into their own as seniors themselves, it feels like a more tight-knit group this year. They understand things a little better.
They definitely do. I think they really picked off of what Kalissa was leaving behind, and she was a sole leader. It was her. These girls are lucky enough there's 5 of them. I mean, it's the whole team. They're practically all seniors but 1 freshman. And I think they're really taking it on as, we need to help this next generation. Like, if we were to give up because of our past or anything like that, they won't do as well. Why would they want to participate if they see us on the court looking miserable? And I think that's just huge, is they're paying attention to the little things that matter. And it's looking into the stands and seeing the little girls that want to be them when they grow up. So they're really taking on all that, and I think they're just letting it all go. They're just letting themselves enjoy the game and have fun with it, and they put in work this summer. That's the first time that it's happened at Bear Lake for a long time, but they all worked hard this summer. They've all talked to each other. They're always checking in on each other, and it's become a family. And I think Kalissa helped with that, but now these girls are taking it on themselves and saying, this is our responsibility, and they're just enjoying it. And it's so fun to watch them grow from a couple years ago till now, because like you said, we are doing better this season than we have in the past. This is the first home win that we've had in 3 seasons. This is the best record we've had in 3 seasons, and we're only halfway through. So, it's something to be proud of, but again, they don't look at it that way. They don't look as, well, these wins are what's important. They look at, we're helping these JV girls that are basically all freshmen, and we're showing them what they need to do and how they need to learn, and those life lessons that I have taught them, they're starting to take on themselves.
So backtrack me for a second here. It's the fall of 2021. You're starting your first season coaching. What were those first few practices like for you and for the team?
To me, I took a step back, because it's something that I always wanted. So, like I always tell my girls, you want to enjoy it. You want to just take it all in. And so those first couple of practices, I was like, wow, I'm here. I made it. Now this is my job. But then it also is a little intimidating, because all eyes are on you. You're the head of the program now, and what legacy do I want to leave behind to these girls? And so it was a little pressure at first, but I have Taylor Anderson with me this whole time, and she's the JV coach, and we feed off of each other very well, and we had the same mindset. And so just jumping in, it was a dream come true, but then it was like, okay, now it's time to go and teach these kids.
Gotcha. So also too, you mentioned about this group wants to set the example for the next generation. How easy was it for this group in particular to buy into that message? And when do you feel they finally had that light bulb moment where okay, this is where it has to be like?
When coaching them, I've coached some of them through volleyball, and so it wasn't just dealing with them in basketball the last 2 years. I've had them the last couple years, or being the assistant coach. They knew what I expected from them, and I think this season they're really coming into themselves. They're believing in themselves more, and they're realizing, all this work that we've put in is starting to pay off. And so I think our long conversations, we focus on mental health too, which I know a lot of coaches, they don't always agree with, but I think if we can teach them those lessons as well and understand that we care about you as a person and we care about your mental health, that they'll give us more because we have that mutual respect. So I think having these deep conversations and learning to understand each other, that's where it started to click, because they're understanding each other more as people and one-on-one and their lives versus on and off the court, and not just on the court and not just teammates. So I think they're really starting to, like I said, become a family because of that, and I think that's where it clicked.
You're the first coach I've talked to so far, Pierre, that's brought up mental health. I know you and I have talked in the past about your life and kind of what kind of drowned up, but you can just go into a little bit about why you feel that's such an important aspect, especially at the high school level.
I think mental health is extremely important, and I think it's often overlooked. Obviously if you have a kid out for a broken ankle or something, everybody sees it, everybody knows, but these kids are going through a lot. That COVID, it hurt this generation, and it hurt a lot of other people as well. So I think being able to openly talk about it and tell them my struggles, it helps them understand that it's okay to struggle, and it's okay to fail, and it's okay to feel that how you're feeling. You validate them, and it's hard to open up about mental health. And I know probably everybody has struggled with it some form or another. And so just to be able to focus on that, they start to see that I'm not in this deep hole alone. And so to be able to openly have conversations about that, it is a rare thing. And so I think they just feel safer and more comfortable. And like I said, they know that I will be there for them no matter what. So they're willing to give me everything that they have. And I think that's a huge step, is that mutual respect. And they know that I'm a safe place for them. And that's all I want. I want that gym to be, you can walk in and everything else goes away. And that's how it was for me. But if you ignore the mental health side of it, you can't do that, because that's always with you. So
what is it about this senior group in particular that makes them just so, I would say, special to you, but also unique in their own way?
They're all, all of them are unique. They all have their personalities and stuff. But bottom line is, this group is very honest with each other. And if they're struggling to trust a teammate or something, they will go up and say, hey, coach, can we have a conversation together, and just say, hey, how can we work on this better? What can I do to help you? And they're very focused on the team aspect of it all. And I think that stems from they trust me, so now they're starting to trust each other, because if I trust them, then okay, well, this is my teammate. So I think it's those little things that are starting to click with them that it makes them special, because they are focusing on those life lessons and stuff. And I talked to them the other day about, we have 3 wins, aren't you guys excited? And they told me the only win that we feel like we've truly earned was Marion, and we lost that game. And to me, that sets me back as a coach, because that makes me extremely proud, because that's when they played their best game all season. That's when they left it all out there. I had a kid throwing up in the locker room after the game because she was so exhausted. But right there proves it's not about the wins and losses, it's how you performed. And I think they've really ran with that, and it shows. Everybody sees them, they never give up. You watch them at a game, they're laughing, they're having fun, and that's rare when you're getting beat by 40-some points.
Yeah. What does it mean to you knowing that, you're halfway through your second season as a head coach, and your girls trust you this much and fight for you just this much?
It means everything to me. And that sometimes they look at me like, oh, you're like Superman, Captain America. That's how they look at their coaches. We have a lot of control over these young athletes as coaches, and I don't think we understand the impact that we make on them. We're with them for such long periods of time that one weird move, it might set them back. And so to have these girls just fully trust me, it means everything. And I feel like I've accomplished what I'm meant to do here and with these athletes. So
gotcha. So with every coach, we're going to throw some curveball questions. So okay, curveball's coming.
All right, here we go.
Big question to ask everybody. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Yes, for sure. That's the only way I eat my pizza anymore. That or cheese.
Thank you.
I got you.
Thank you. So many people say no, it makes no sense, but that boggles my mind.
You know, we've talked about a lot of coaching. I want to find out what you do when you're not coaching. You know, what hobbies, are you interested in? What are your favorite things to do? Do you hunt? Do you play video games? Do you fish? Like what is it? Who is Hannah, the non-coach?
The non-coach Hannah. I think all of us are always thinking about the season, but outside of basketball and coaching the girls, I work on a farm with my dad, and I love being outside. I love being in the tractor, just listening to music. That's my happy place. I love just that time, or with my dog and just enjoying life. Love going hiking, hunting, all that stuff. Definitely an outdoorsy type of person. That's how I grew up. I write sometimes. I think it's kind of fun just to let it all out, and that's another lesson that I taught my girls, and just playing games with family and just relaxing.
Just out of curiosity, it's also a farm camp growing up. What kind of farming does your family do?
It's just for a family that's downstate. They come up there, so we just keep whatever they want to do on the farm. We're like, okay, we'll do it. So we have some crops and stuff, but got a couple horses, and just whatever they want to do, we just have fun with it.
Gotcha. What was your first concert?
My first concert was the Newsboys, the Christian band.
Okay.
Yep, when we lived in Colorado, that was my first ever concert. So.
Gotcha.
Now, I want to know favorite part about living in Northern Michigan and least favorite part about living in Northern Michigan.
Least favorite part would be the bugs and the cold. I don't like the cold. I've grown up in Michigan and Colorado, and it's cold there, but the bugs, the mosquitoes here and stuff, don't enjoy it. But I do love the outdoorsy parts of it. And, there's water. You can have hiking. There's Crystal Mountain. You have all these different things that in one state that makes it very unique.
Well, I wanted to know, and I asked Todd this last week as well, and this speaks to, I guess, how into sports you are outside of coaching, right? I think every coach is a little different, but what is the favorite sporting event that you've ever attended, if you have one?
I would say my first NBA game. I went on my birthday with my aunt over in Colorado, and that was probably the one. I've been to that and then some pro hockey games, but that's really it that I've gone outside of this area and stuff. But it was a cool experience. You see them on TV and then you see them in person, and it's like, you're ginormous. You don't expect NBA players to be that big, and then you stand next to them and you're like, oh, this is impressive. Okay.
So okay, just going off that too. Maybe it's just me because I went to a Pistons game back when the Palace was still intact. But is it just me? Was it kind of weird? Some maybe a big man that looked like his absolute tanks on upper bodies, but also the lower bodies looked like chicken,
twigs. Yeah.
Is that the weirdest thing?
It is. It is. And then watching them run down the court, it's like, no wonder you guys aren't that tired. It takes you 4 steps and you're all the way down the court. Where us, it's 10.
You've mentioned Colorado a couple of times
Yes.
now, so that's interesting me. Did you live there at a point in your life? Were you born there? Did you grow up there?
Yes.
What is it about Colorado?
I was born there, and most of my mom's family is out there, and we lived a few years out there, and I love the mountains. Here you don't really have that, but I do love the mountains out there, and the bugs are limited out there during the summer, unlike here where you get attacked by mosquitoes. But that's just kind of home to me, just because that's where a lot of my mom's side of the family is. That's where we were born. That's where my twin brother is now. So when I get a chance, I'm always out there just hiking and just enjoying nature out there.
Perfect. Well, Hannah, I appreciate you coming on today. It was fun again. Mitch, loving this podcast. How are you feeling about it, man?
So I'd say so far so good. As my grandpa would say, after a really good game of football or golf, he'd say, tolerable. So we'll wrap this up. Hannah, again, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Big thanks to Hannah for joining us here in the studio. Always a good little chat with her no matter what. So let's talk now some NFL football. First of all, divisional round. I personally went 2-2 money lines, 3-1 spread. Good for the Bengals. I had toss up that one. I believe you went 4-0 in both.
Yeah, I haven't actually checked to confirm, but I do believe I was 4-0 in both categories. Hey, even a blind squirrel finds a nut occasionally. All right, this was a terrible season for me. First and foremost, if you've been listening to my advice, you've been losing a lot of bets. You should have been listening to Mitch all year. It happens. Last year, I did have some nice luck. It was the first time I did bet the league, and a little bit of beginner's luck there, maybe, but hopefully it's swinging back around here with the playoffs.
Absolutely. So, we're down to 2 games this weekend. We're down to 2 weekends left of NFL football, so part of me might cry a little bit through this. I don't know. I'm a big NFL guy, but late on the action, what we got this weekend?
Mitch, we've got 2 great games slated. Up first is going to be San Francisco versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Should be a good one. I want to mention this first. I've got a little NFL fact for people to pay attention to about this weekend. It encompasses both games. In the 7 of the past 9 years, the home team has won the NFC Championship game and the AFC Championship game, meaning advantage Philly and Kansas City. In addition, I did a little further digging here. Teams that play on Saturday during the playoffs are 17-9 in the conference title game, spanning over 13 years. Now, I want to see if Mitch or myself is going to take either of these things into account, or if we're going to go our own way. But first up is Philly, who is a 2.5-point favorite here against the 49ers. Mitch, go ahead.
So, before we even get the gambling aspect, I'm saying this is a fan aspect. This is the game I'm so excited to watch, because I feel the AFC game, it's about the quarterbacks. One's kind of wounded. We'll get to that. When you look at the NFC, it's two teams with Nick Sirianni and Kyle Shanahan as respective coaches that have found a way to play power football in the day of the modern day spread. They found a way to these pistol formations, a way to keep pounding the rock, play physical style black and blue football while still surviving in a game that's evolving into a more pass happy league. So for me, I'm so excited for this matchup just for that alone, because high school I played in the Power T system. I was an offensive lineman. I love, just seeing 7-on-7, just beat the crap out of each other for 60 minutes. That's what gets me, enjoying football. So that's the game I have on my radar. That said, though, both Jalen Hurts and Brock Purdy have 1 playoff win so far this season, at least. Purdy technically has more playoff wins than Jalen Hurts. So I think the quarterback matchup is pretty even if you look at it close enough. But like you mentioned, the home stats, I feel Philadelphia's going to pull this off, but I am hardcore pulling for San Francisco in this one. I think Philly's step is going to be too much, because I think after watching the Dallas game, seeing what DeMarcus Lawrence was able to do against Mike McGlinchey, San Francisco's right tackle, and then also with Philadelphia, Lane Johnson's not 100%, what's going to happen there? So I think Philadelphia just has too much depth, and I think the Eagles are going to pull it out, although I'm pulling hard for San Francisco.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how it happened, but the 49ers have made it to the title game with a rookie quarterback. When Brock Purdy takes the field on Sunday, Mitch, he'll become just the 5th rookie quarterback in NFL history to start in a conference title game. Now, talking about those other 4 quarterbacks, the results of those games were not pretty. The rookies went 0-4 and threw 9 interceptions to just 4 touchdowns. Purdy struggled against a good Cowboys defense, as you mentioned, last week. And this week he faces the Eagles, who I believe are even better. They've racked up the 3rd most sacks in NFL history for a single season, with 70, falling too short of the Bears' record of 72 in the 1984 season. However, all that being said, that might not help against the 49ers, because San Fran is a run-first team, as you know, and the Eagles' defense surrendered 4.6 yards per carry during the regular season. Now, what does that mean? Most of the time, if the 49ers are gaining 4+ yards on you, they're going to win. But I don't know. I'm just not really sure what's going to happen in this matchup, but just like last week, fly, Eagles, fly. Going with Eagles, they're going to take the win, advance to the Super Bowl, and they're going to cover.
So AFC Championship game. Chiefs, Bengals, how we looking there?
This one, in my opinion, is even more interesting because you've got Patrick Mahomes hobbled. In my opinion, that's going to be the biggest betting factor of the weekend. Right now, Cincinnati is a 1-point favorite on the road. I would assume that 1 point is because of Patrick Mahomes' ankle and the uncertainty there. Mitch, your pick.
Man, so I actually bet on this spread. I got it in Cincinnati plus 1.5 because I feel the worst case scenario, Kansas City wins a 1-point game off a walk-off field goal from Harrison Butker. That's the worst case scenario I see happening. But since Cincinnati got their hands on Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, they're 3-0 against Kansas City. They walked in the Arrowhead last year and won up a game-winning field goal in overtime. The way Cincinnati's playing right now, and yes, Mahomes is banged up, And I think maybe Cincinnati is a way to slow down Kelsey. But also, this Chiefs defense is still really young. They still have quite a few young pieces on that defense. And I don't know how they're going to do in that big of a stage. I mean, my big issue last week with Buffalo was the offensive line, right? Well, those second-string guys were good enough to get them to the Super Bowl last year. That's one thing I didn't realize going to the Buffalo game, which, should have probably been smarter on that. I'll admit it. But I think the Bengals win this one. I think they win it by a touchdown. Mahomes is going to give the game of his life. He's going to fight no matter what. If Kansas City can find success around the ball, and if somehow Travis Kelce can have a big game, they have a shot. But I like Cincinnati here. I think just too much momentum's on their side.
If Patrick Mahomes is on the field, the guy's a gamer. He gives you a chance. It doesn't matter. I don't care if you get 50% of that guy. He's going to give you a chance. I just don't know if it's going to be enough. This is the fourth time in just over a year that these two teams have faced each other. You mentioned it. Bengals and Burrow have these guys as numbers. Funny enough about those games, the Chiefs, in at least two of those games, including the game you mentioned last year during the playoffs, led by double digits in each of those contests and surrendered big comebacks to the Bengals. Now, if Patrick Mahomes is not healthy enough to move around, that's going to create a lot of issues for the Chiefs. The last time we saw Mahomes try to play a game while injured was in the Super Bowl against the Bucs, and we all remember how that went. 31-9, if I remember the final score correctly. After shutting the Bills down, I expect the Bengals defense to have a lot of confidence, even though that's not a defense that I think highly of either. I think both of these defenses have really a lot of question marks there. And in the case of a healthy Patrick Mahomes, this would be a shootout, in my opinion. And on the other side, you've got the Bengals dealing with Chris Jones, where the Chiefs defense thrives, is in the middle of that defensive line there, against, as you mentioned it, a really young and maybe inexperienced offensive line, even though they did get this team to the Super Bowl last year. These aren't the starters, right? These are guys that are plugged in and playing with other guys out and hurt. I don't know. Chris Jones is going to cause some havoc, but I'm with Mitch on this one. I'm going with Cincinnati to advance back to the Super Bowl. It's going to be Cincinnati Bengals versus the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl.
Before we move on to the last segment, what was your biggest takeaway from the divisional round?
Wow, yeah, the divisional round, very interesting. To me, though, I didn't think Philly was going to do that to the New York Giants.
Yeah.
I really didn't think they were going to do that to the New York Giants. I thought it was going to be a little closer. I thought it was going to be a tight-knit first half with Philly pulling away in the second half. But they just put their foot on the pedal immediately and ran away with it. I mean, they were up 3 touchdowns easily in the first, second quarter, and really it was over very early. That sort of shocked me. I know what we all might think about Daniel Jones and that offense and whatnot, but it was still shocking to me.
Yeah, the Giants definitely have no playmakers outside Saquon Barkley, and that kind of killed them. For me, the AFC became really, really clear in the fact where it's just like we were 15, 20 years ago. Joe Burrow and the Bengals are very similar to what the Patriots' role was. Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes are very similar to what the Colts were. Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills are what the Pittsburgh Steelers were. Because let's face facts, was Ben Roethlisberger ever really the best quarterback in the AFC? Even though he had a really good defense behind him. Wait, does that sound familiar? A big, athletic, mobile quarterback with a really good defense who just can't seem to get past the top 2 quarterbacks in his own conference. As a Steelers fan, I can tell you, yeah, it's very similar. That's what Josh Allen is. He's the next Ben Roethlisberger, minus of course all the legal stuff. But that's probably not going to be mentioned here on this podcast. But a big mobile guy with a big arm and a really good defense. But when it comes to those big games, it was off. It was bad. So I think the passing of the guard in the AFC is kind of going to be settled here. It's going to be Bengals and Chiefs at the top, and the Bills got to play catch up. And maybe one year they get their shining glory. Who knows? But I don't know. That's the way I saw it. The thing really dawned on me big from the divisional round.
I think that's a fantastic comparison. I'm not sure if there's issues next year with the Buffalo Bills getting over the hump, and it's due to the offense and lack of production from Josh Allen in a big-time game. I don't know what they're going to be doing. Of course you're going to lock this guy up, but where do you kind of go from there? What things are you looking at to improve that team? What needs to change? Because I do think you're right. This is a guy that maybe is not going to be the best player on his team and is not going to be that caliber player that can push you over the top. He maybe is a half a tier below a Burrow or a Mahomes. maybe the clutch gene is not really there with him. I know that's something that we like to talk about in basketball, football, and all these things quite often. And I think if you were to rank these three quarterbacks that are being brought up right now, Josh Allen is last on the list in terms of clutch gene.
Yeah. Also, massive overreaction here. But if Buffalo really wanted to send a message, you boot Sean McDermott and you give the biggest, you back up as many money trucks as you can to Sean Payton. If I'm being dead honest. Like, that's just a massive overreaction. It's not going to happen. But, I mean, I think that's kind of where I think it has to go. Because I think Brian Dable had a big play in what Josh Allen was able to do. So, yeah. So, let's move on to one last thing. So, McLain, you have a topic I'm actually excited to hear about. What do you got, my guy?
Betting on golf is officially back. Now, I got to be honest. People might think I'm crazy, but last weekend, I think a lot of people are probably like this, sports fans specifically, but you got your main TV and then you got your side TV. The side TV had NFL on it, and the main TV had the American Express tournament on it with the sound on. My wife and I were watching the final round of that tournament and throwing a little money on a kid named Davis Thompson, who blew a big lead to John Rahm, sprinkled a little on John Rahm too, so we could hedge there. And I tell you what, golf is the funnest and most stressful thing that I bet on, because you're betting on who wins. Like, I don't mess with the whole who's going to win this specific hole thing yet. Haven't dabbled in that, with the pairings. And Rahm and Thompson were paired, and so you could bet, like, is John Rahm going to win hole 15? Or is Davis going to win hole 15? Or are they both going to tie? Those things I don't dabble in. I mostly just dabble in who's going to win the tournament, and I always wait until the back nine on Sunday to bet, because golf is the one sport where you can bet pretty much up until there's the equivalent of like 2 to 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter of a football game, where you can't really do that in football. You can't really bet a live line that late into the game. They normally block you off on Barstool Sports, which is where I do my gambling. So my take is that John Rahm deserves to be the number one golfer in the world. Okay, this last weekend, while we're watching both of those tournaments, John Rahm wins again. It's a second win let me back up here. By all counts, in my opinion, he is the best in the world because of this right here. He's won 4 of his past 6 starts worldwide and is the current favorite in San Diego this week to win the Farmers Insurance Open. Should he win this week at Torrey Pines, where he has won twice, including the 2021 U.S. Open, it would be the 19th time since 1997 that a player has won 3 straight PGA Tour events. Tiger Woods is responsible for 14 of those previous 18 occurrences, so he's in pretty good company. A win or a top 3 finish should propel him to number 1, and if it doesn't, then the official golf world, rankings, official world golf rankings, whatever they call themselves, which is a complete jank ranking system, they need to take a long look in the mirror if they don't give this guy the number 1 spot this weekend if he wins or gets a top 3 finish. Mitch, back to you.
All right, so I was thinking about what to do about this segment this week, but then this morning I see that Mel Kiper Jr. dropped his mock draft, and man, I have some opinions. So, first of all, Jalen Carter, number 1 in Chicago. Yeah, that makes sense. The Bears need everything on defense. They need everything, except a quarterback, really. Jalen Carter makes sense. But he has 4 quarterbacks in the top 10, which makes no sense to me. So, Houston, number 2, taking C.J. Stroud. Okay, Stroud or Young. I guess Stroud's a bigger body. I think after the game against NFL defense like Georgia, yes, he can be mobile. Yes, he's accurate. Yes, he's not just an athlete like most Ohio State quarterbacks have been since the start of college football. Because let's face facts, there's no Ohio State quarterback that's won a Super Bowl. Fun fact. Bryce Young going 4 to Indy. I think that's pretty obvious. Will Levis at 5 to Seattle. Okay. It makes sense if the fit's there. But the Panthers taking Anthony Richardson from Florida, number 9. It's like, okay, buddy, let's pump the brakes here. This dude was about as consistent as me trying to say a coherent sentence in front of a woman. Like, it's not. I'm sorry, he's not top 10 talent. He's not. Yes, he could be a guy, but you're banking on the could. Like, for me personally, when you think first round talent, you gotta think, can this guy play? Can he help now? That's how it goes in this NFL draft. Which brings me to what he has Detroit doing, which makes a lot of sense. 6th overall pick via the Rams. Thank you for that, by the way. Appreciate that. He has Tyree Wilson, edge rusher out of Texas Tech, 6'6", 275. If you throw him in a rotation with Hutchinson and James Houston and the Aquaras, man, I think your defensive line, when you had a D-tackle probably somewhere second round, is a guy I'll talk to you about later down the road. I think that edge, that rush, it gets solidified. I think, if you go in somewhere in nickel packages, we have 3 down linemen, he can come off the edge like the outside backer role. He's a guy who can have his hand on the dirt and get to the quarterback. He's kind of a stud, so that makes sense. And then also at pick 18, he has Lions taking Christian Gonzalez, a cornerback out of Oregon. Yeah, I think the cornerback's the right play, but I don't think he's going to be there 18. I think once the combine hits, you'll see him probably be the top corner off the draft because, if you watch his highlights, what he did this 1 year at Oregon after playing Colorado, the dude is locked down. This dude is a stud. This dude's an animal. But Detroit going defense, the first two first-round picks makes sense. But that's the first mock draft I've seen without the Lions taking a quarterback. So, McLain, you and I were talking about this a little bit before we started recording. What do you do with Jared Goff now? Especially after the year he had this year. Top 10 statistically. What do you do with him?
Jared Goff is a conundrum. He's an enigma. He had a great year this year. I would like to point out this is probably the best year of his career. He's been in the league for a little bit now. The next closest season in terms of success that I would say he had was the Super Bowl season where they ran Todd Gurley into the ground there at the Rams organization, and he was in. Did he win the MVP that year, Mitch? Or was he just in contention that year, I believe? But he was easily a 1,000-yard rusher. For my Michigan State fans out there, Sean McVay did to Todd Gurley what Mark D'Antonio did to Javon Ringer. Just ran the poor kid into the ground. And I'm sorry, but I'll say it. My take on Jared Goff is he is a short-term solution to a long-term problem. He is fine in the short term. I have no problem with Jared Goff being this team's quarterback. Next year, I hope he comes back and does the same thing. Where I draw the line is I'm not paying this guy. When it comes time to extend him or to enter into long-term contract terms with him, I am not paying this guy. I'm not paying him what the market says I have to pay him. I just can't do it. I can't justify it. Not when money has to be allocated to other parts of this team. Offensively, defensively, special teams. There are still holes on this team that can be filled with other people and rookies in the draft and whatnot, and cap space. Just telling Mitch, off camera, off the record, whatever you want to call it. I'm not a, salary cap savant in the NFL. Have never cared to particularly look at it too closely. But I think if you're a Lions fan, you're telling yourself, I'm taking what Jared Goff has given me right now, but I cannot pay this guy long term, because then I think you're locking yourself into a guy that is ultimately average who played above his level this year.
Yeah, so I said back after the draft this past year that he's basically their Alex Smith. And I still firmly believe that because, he still got LA to a Super Bowl, and McVay admitted in that game, he overthought it too bad and did not put Goff in a position to win because, if you're 33 years old and you're up against Bill Belichick in a Super Bowl, yeah, you're going to freak out just a little bit. And also help you point, Gurley finished second MVP, putting in 17 behind Tom Brady. Shock.
Of course.
But here's the thing. According to OverTheCap.com, he's locked in until after the 2024 season. Dead cap is not that bad. I think you stick with him at least for the next 2 years because, you're still trying to build on defense. I think a lot of your cornerstones, you guys like your Aiden Hutchinsons, your Jameson Williams, your Amon-Ra St. Browns, you're still playing with rookie contracts for 2 to 3 more years. If you want to hit the timer on a rookie contract for a quarterback, you got to hit it right because Brett Holmes said it perfectly already this offseason. It's a lot easier to get worse at quarterback than it is to get better at quarterback. So, you know what? If Goff keeps winning games and somehow he's weirdly the savior of Detroit football, I don't mind him taking the numbers similar to what he is right now. Is he worth the Aaron Rodgers $50 million? Is he worth the guaranteed money? No. But do you think Jared Goff knows that? Probably. So honestly, the way the quarterback market is, if you can lock him in, right now his cap number for 2023 is 30.9. If you could have something similar to that, because at the end of the day, you're going to spend around 12 to 14% of your salary cap on a quarterback. If the cap keeps rising, and right now his cap figure is going to be about 13.7%. That's right on par where it should be for a quarterback who should be in the league. Now, will he eventually get replaced by a young quarterback? I'd say at this point, yes. But they keep progressing and keep getting better, and all of a sudden he keeps winning with this team. Like, you got to ride with him.
You do have to ride with this guy. Like I said before, I got no problem with him being on the team. I think he is a short-term solution to a long-term problem. This is a 70-year rebuild, people, right? And so let's think about it for a second, right? If you're Jared Goff, Mitch mentioned it, right? But these are high-caliber athletes with egos. They don't always think like you and me. If I'm Jared Goff, let's just theoretically, play a game here, right? He had the season that he had this year. Let's say next year he replicates it to a certain extent, and the Lions make the playoffs, okay? Let's say now, in his final year, he replicates that play again. Now he's done it for 3 years. Has he earned himself that market money? He's at least earned the right to demand it, and that's worrisome because I do think Jared Goff is a guy that has the capability of regressing to the mean, right? He's going to regress back to what he usually is. I don't think he's going to be able to replicate this for more than maybe one season. But if he does this for another year and he makes the playoffs and they almost win or they do win, I think he has all the right in the world to walk into the front office and say, look, man, I just put together 2 of the best seasons this franchise has ever seen, and I won a playoff game, which is something the best quarterback in your organization's history was never able to do. Pay me my money. He has every right to do that if that's what happens. And to that I say, no, I got to let him walk.
Yeah. I feel that. Well, I think this wraps up episode 2. Any last thoughts before we sign off, my man?
No, man. Episode 2 is in the books. Everybody, please, and thank you for listening, downloading, streaming, wherever you're getting this from. We appreciate it. And we want to keep this thing going, so by all means, keep listening and keep clicking on that article tab that's going to take you to this podcast.
If you listen to us on YouTube, smash that subscribe button, smash that like button. If you listen to us on Spotify, smash that subscribe button. Leave us a 5-star review. And if you listen somewhere else, please let me know because I will be seriously concerned. But that wraps up episode 2 from McLain Moberg. I'm Mitch Vosburg. Ladies and gentlemen, keep your stick in the ice.